Next up, we'll talk about considerations for traffic incident management. And to walk us through the introduction there, we have Joe Tebow, who's a program manager under the traffic incident management team. Joe, he's got one arm, but he's ready to present. So welcome, Joe. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, Dave. Thanks for having me, everybody. Next slide, Kevin, please. Yeah, and even let's go to the next one. Hey, this is the three legs of my bar stool, if you would, me being one, right? I look at the participant list and I see a lot of great TIM champions on here, and that makes me happy. But many of you know Paul Joden and Jim Ostrich, who are also part of the national TIM team. So we work on this all together, and we thank you for all your efforts. Next slide, Kevin. So I once again, looking at the list of participants, I see a lot of TIM champions. I see a lot of folks that don't recognize, and I'm sure there's someone here who may very well be hearing about TIM for the very first time. So what is traffic incident management? And first off, when we say traffic incident management, automatically most folks think, oh, crashes, right? Well, it's more than crashes, right? Of course, that's the primary response from our community. But we deal with everything out there, from dropped loads off of tractor trailers to agricultural issues to even livestock, right? If it's something that disrupts the normal flow of traffic on the roadway, it's a traffic incident, and our program helps to manage that. And when you think about the numbers here that you're looking at this slide, right, 6.1 million crashes a year, that's about 16,000 crashes a day on a normal day, right, without an eclipse, So, there's a lot of response and a lot of exposure out there. And it also creates additional safety hazards for the motoring public, and really ties up and has a huge impact on commerce. So it's evidence-based. It was created by responders for responders. And our response community is fire, rescue, EMS, law enforcement, towing and recovery, and state safety service patrols. That is our primary community of responders who like to identify themselves as masters of disaster, right? We go into action when everything else is kind of like falling apart. Next slide, Kevin. The national program, once I already said, by responders for responders, but we're up to a little over 700,000 responders trained to the national TIM program. And we're working on having it institutionalized across the country. That is, in training academies and other organizations. Actually, Kentucky and Georgia, as you see, they actually have TIM training as part of their paramedic program. And there's many ways to get the TIM training, and I'll tell you about those a little bit later on. Next slide, please. So I said, that it saves lives, time, and money, and out of Arizona, 30% fewer secondary crashes, utilizing the program of TIM and the concepts associated with it, and much lower, up to 35%. Incident clearance times through TIM, using those practices and the coalition of responders all being trained to the same program. It pays dividends. Next slide, please. We've also been delegated with part of the National Roadway Safety Strategy for post-crash care for EMS. And it plays a part in all of this Eclipse building, right? Because part of post-crash care is ensuring that there's expedient access to emergency medical care. So while we've been talking about this and the staging of apparatus and who are our players, don't forget the EMS community and the fire community. It's all part of the National Roadway Safety System and the Safe System approach, post-crash care for EMS. Make sure they have a seat at your table in your planning stages. Next slide, Kev. EDC 7, Everyday Counts. This is round 7. We have technology for saving lives. And we're talking about the technologies that are out there that are underused but proven, and many different agencies that are using these technologies. So we're doing research, and we're spreading the word, and having some peer-to-peer reviews and workshops, and covering all of these EDC 7, which are 6, and I'm about to talk talk to those six now, Kevin. There we go. There's our six technologies for EDC7, of which at least two, if not three, are very much in play for the Eclipse. We talking about unmanned aerial systems for Tim. Well, think about this for a second. You have long stretches of road. You have areas out there you want to cover. You don't have cameras. You don't have any fixed video systems out there to feed back to TMCs. Well, there are safety service patrols and other agencies out there that have deployed tethered drones to their vehicles. And when you think about utilizing a tethered drone with full camera capabilities, including nighttime, and they can stream back to the TMC, and that tethered drone can stay in the air as long as that service vehicle that it's attached to has fuel. Right. So, it's up and it can monitor those blind areas that you'd like to keep an eye on. You can put a unit out there. Of course, the advanced warning throughout this Eclipse is going to be a huge deal, and it'll start a day or two or more in advance. The post-crash care I talked about, but also debris removal. Many of the safety service patrols out there are also capable of removing debris. Maybe a partial lost load, something fell off the back of a truck, right? They can get out there, they could get it out of the traveled roadway, as long as they can get to it safely, right? And we're talking about, rural areas of 70-mile queues and 15 and a half hour rush hours, so to speak, right? A lot of pre-planning and staging comes into play with that. Kevin, please. So the pre-planning, no different than any other event, except it's you're going to go from hopefully a bright sunny day, right, clear skies, and then sudden darkness, right, and then a few minutes later it's going to be daytime again. But this event's probably going to carry into the nighttime hours also. So this long duration event, when you do your risk assessments and needs assessments, remember it's going to be daytime, nighttime, and for hours on end. So when you do that risk assessment, make sure you're prepared for that. We all know where the hot spots are, and we talked about this. Several of the speakers that have talked about this did a good job about staging apparatus. And you know where your hot spots are. You know where that dead man's curve is. Everyone knows those spots. So, when you stage for those areas out there, remember when you're building a temporary bullpen for staging apparatus or equipment, make sure those folks are protected too, jersey walls or whatever, to ensure that any runaway vehicle, if they're roadside, that they're also protected while they're out there. You have your traffic control plans. Maybe you're refining them or making special appendixes for this particular event. Get all the right players to the table. When I say right players, and this doesn't apply to the entire country, but I'll address, from the Northeast, right? Fire police brigades would be a huge help, and they're out there and willing to do it. Make sure you reach out to them, check your area, your jurisdiction, to see if you have active fire police units out there. They're all volunteers, but they're equipped, they're ready to go, and they could probably give you a hand in your traffic control endeavors. The safe resource staging, I talked about that, and then your tabletop drills, right? Talk about your tabletop drills. Have at least one, right? And get a master of disaster out there to come up with something, right? And have all the right players there. And one of the questions in the chat pod earlier was about communications. In the rural and remote areas, communications can be a real challenge. And I'll ask, and I'll throw this out there as for the agencies. Are you using GETS cards, GETS, GETS cards, and the WPS service that comes along with it? If not, pop something up. I'll put the web address for the GETS link, for Government Emergency Telecommunications Service. And what they'll do is that you're allowed into the system. They're not going to give you a cell phone signal if there's none to be had, right? But what they do is you get priority for access to existing signals for your communications. And it's free, right? It's a free service. So I'll pop a link to that site there for you folks that are interested in that. Next slide, Kevin, please. Working together, we have traffic incident management units just designed for traffic incident management. Most of these units are housed within the fire service, fire rescue service. Some of the towing and recovery agencies have built their own traffic management units, but make sure they have a seat at the table or reach out to them. They can be a huge resource and a big benefit in your planning stages out there. And Kevin? So we do have many training opportunities, and you can jump on any of those between now and Eclipse time, because it doesn't take a lot of time. And Kevin, next slide, please. You can do it. You can schedule an in-person. There are state TIM committees in every state in the nation, right? You can reach out to them to get an instructor to come by. If you need one, to contact one, contact us. We'll get you in touch with an instructor to get you out there in person. However, we can do web-based, and through the our partners at National Highway Institute, you can access it there. This is all free. Or you can go to Emergency Responder Safety Institute. They have 10-module training program for TIM, but I believe they have up to 24 different modules dealing with all sorts of traffic incidents and all disciplines, right? And they're short, usually about 1-hour modules. So take advantage of that, if nothing else, to build your knowledge as to what's taking place in front of it if you're unfamiliar with TIM. Traffic incident management saves lives every single day, and it goes way beyond a crash, right? Way beyond the crash. So make sure the right folks are out there or have a seat at your planning table. They can contribute. Consider some of those technologies that are out there, whether it be unmanned aerial systems or the new technology of advanced warning, variable message boards and signage. There's a ton of stuff out there that's available, and many of you are using it now, because like I said, I saw the participant list there, and so I know a lot of you folks are engaged in that already. But reach out, mutual aid. If you don't have it, maybe the state next to you does, and they're willing to be a player, right? So utilize that mutual aid thing and tapping into your resources. David, I saw you pop up.
Thanks, Joe. Are you got any more slides? I was gonna say, I think
That's
that's
it.
the end, right? I didn't want to
That's
pop
it
up
for
too
me.
early, but thanks for taking the time to share everything we're doing in the TIM program, and great work as always. Let's go ahead and move to our next speaker. Robin Helmerich. Robin is a traffic incident management coordinator for the state of Illinois, with over 30 years experience in civil engineering and emergency management at the state, county, and federal levels. She covered the last eclipse as the emergency coordinator with the FHWA Illinois division, and now the 2024 event with the Illinois Department of Transportation in the State Emergency Operations Center. Robin, thanks for joining us, and I'll turn the floor over to you.
Appreciate it, and thanks for the opportunity to speak today. And I am recovering from a cold, so hopefully we get through this without me having a coughing fit. First thing I want to say is I am kind of covering this subject for our emergency coordinator at IDOT, Brandon Keller. So he's been integral in all the coordination for this with many of the other surrounding states as well. And before I forget, Joe mentioned something about having the capability with the GETS card and all that to get priority. There's also a program, I'm not sponsoring it by any means, but I actually have it on my phone through AT&T. It's FirstNet for all emergency responders. You got to jump through some hoops to get it, but it gives you priority and no slowdown of data. So just another thing to look at for this. But anyway, next slide, please. Kind of the relationships under our State Emergency Operations Center in Illinois. It's going to be activated just like it was back in 2017. And all of the agencies get there and everybody works together. And just as a normal disaster event, also included is like your American Red Cross, your Salvation Army. We have a business EOC, which covers the utilities, trucking industry, which we have a great relationship with our two main ones in the state, Midwest Trucker and Illinois Trucking Association. MABUS, which is mutual aid box alarm systems for the fire, EMS statewide throughout, so it covers all the fire departments. ILEAS, which is the Illinois Law Enforcement Alarm System, and the National Guard are some other ones that are part of that. Next slide. I wanted to just kind of throw a couple pictures in just so you can kind of see how things work. On the left side is our State Emergency Operations Center. And then the other three are within our Illinois Department of Transportation, our Station 1 based out of Springfield. It was built a couple years ago. There's 10 stations, a 10 by 40 video wall. We've integrated all the cameras in there. And then also there's a small breakout room that can also double up and throw up the screen just like it is in the other room. So we are prepared, and it kind of works in combination with IEMA, which we also share a link with. Next slide, please. The big thing with traffic incident management and the other disasters is the communication, coordination, and cooperation, the 3 C's. So kind of the main thing with this is we held a tabletop exercise on February 8th with all the new current agency representatives. So everybody had an opportunity to interact and give some stuff with the Eclipse. They threw in some injects. Everybody kind of worked together and kind of learned how everything was going to be working. IDOT started this process back in August of 2022, kind of started planning. And then in the summer of 2023, we met with a lot of local entities and kind of tried to meet their coordination preparation, what they're going to need, how they're responsible on their local roads for traffic flow and law enforcement. And then, we'll be there to meet what we can. If they can't meet their resource requests, then they'll submit them to us. Let's try to think what else. Our State Emergency Operations Center will be right in the middle of the state, Springfield. And then outside of the area, there'll be a State Unified Area Command. And then there's a couple other area commands in the area, and then a forward operating base. And then also, IDOT has various yards throughout the area. So all the coordination will be, disseminated in the area. And then next slide, please. Big thing to see here is our communication within the agencies. We have a fantastic relationship with our state police and direct contact with them at all points. We all have each other's cell phone numbers. We all reach out to each other. Everything is thrown back and forth. Our dispatch centers all have a great relationship with our TMCs. So, there is just coordination, unbeknownst to any others. What we do is at IDOT provide the liaisons to all those areas. We'll be monitoring the roadway conditions through Google Traffic, Travel Midwest, National Weather Service. We update road closure maps, and that's put out there just like everybody else's, like 511 system. We have it gettingaroundillinois.com. We'll be supporting the field personnel that day, relating all the incident information, deploy all the assets, give detours when needed, try to provide, information for any queuing, protection of emergency responders. We've all been traveling, with all the TIM stuff. All the state police have been through it because it's required at their academy. We coordinate with all the TMCs in the border states. And then we'll be using our camera system and use of dynamic message boards. Our PIOs will be out there. We'll be putting stuff out on all the platforms, the social medias. Also, we'll be monitoring through our TMC. We have GPS on all of our resources, like our tandem trucks. So we have a map that shows when they're in service, when they're out of service, where they're at, where their plows are even at. If they had to put down salt, we know what the salt rates are. And then ISP has the same thing through their system on their computer. So, and they have access to our information, so they know where we're at. So it's all of a great thing of just being able to, share all those resources. And same thing like some other states, our oversized, overweight permits will be redirecting the permit loads during that time frame. And then also with the tows, all the troops have MOUs with tow companies in the area that are on rotation list. Now, by Illinois state law, which is very rare around the country, is we require any tow company on the tow rotation list to have traffic incident management training. The ISP troops go through and verify and do audits and double check. So that way we do have that TIM training out there with the whole groups. Next slide, please. This shows the path of where it was in 2017. And of course, it passed through Carbondale, and we had 2 minutes. And there's a lot of lessons learned from that time frame. It was same thing as happened on a Monday. So people trickled in over the weekend. There were big festivals. And then what happened is everybody left right after the eclipse. So the roads were saturated. Luckily, we had no big incidents, but we did have a lot of congestion. Next slide, Pete, please. So just a few facts from the 2017, just kind of where it was at, and then what it will be, the next totality will be 4 minutes, 9 seconds, almost double of what it was. And then just for the next slide, then I'll have a few more facts. If you go to the next one, please. So the crossroads, and kind of one of the rare things, is it meets in about the same location, just a few miles south of Carbondale. So luckily we've had a little bit of time to plan, but for this event, it enters the state at like 12:42. Totality happens at 1:58, and then it ends at 2:06, and it exits at 3:20 p.m. So luckily this is also happening on a Monday. So hopefully, we'll have some time to kind of prepare and get ready for this. And I was trying to see the average speed of how it travels through the state is 1,787 miles per hour. And we have like 129 centerline miles. Next slide, please. One thing that we did do after the 2017 event is there was an after action report developed, and it was about 2 pages long. And some of the key takeaways from that event that we have also included in our next one is more pre-planning with the local agencies and better traffic management. We're not allowing any lane closures unless essential. If there's a bridge taken out, then of course we have to have that. And then also no unauthorized parking along the interstates or major routes or long-term in the rest areas. Our big thing is, trucking and getting them through their hours of service time. So they have to have truck parking. So we are making signs up specifically for that event in all of our rest areas and not allowing passenger cars to park in the truck parking. They're to park in theirs only and no long-term. So that's another thing that we are taking into consideration. And also, ahead of time, another thing we did is at IDOT, all the districts and their planning included in their traffic control special provisions requirements that to make sure that there were no construction things going on during that time so that the lanes would be open. Next, please. And kind of to finish up, we're trying to put out as many public advisories as possible. To plan the routes and to make sure to stay a while after the eclipse is over, stay, eat, spend the night, work from home. I know Southern Illinois University is shutting down the campus for the day as well to try to help out. So there's a lot of things kind of taken into consideration. But the main thing from this is everybody's talking, everybody's, communicating and trying to coordinate the event together. So I hope I covered it all, and I thank you for your time.